Welcome to A Moment of Bach, where we take our favorite moments from the composer's vast musical output, just a minute's worth or even a few seconds, and show you why we think they are remarkable. We are your hosts, Alex and Christian Giebert, and today's movement is so remarkable that we just talked about it 2 weeks ago. It's Goldberg Variations Movement 7, but we have even more to say about this particular piece of music, and so we return to this Canary Jig.
So what is this like dance-wise? Is it a jig? In the manuscript, it says variation number 7. It doesn't say jig, but most editions say in the tempo of a jig, or jig. That's usually a fast triple meter dance, but this movement is particularly characterized by bum, ba-bum, bum, ba-bum, bum, ba-bum. Kind of a rhythm full of a unique personality that's more than just eighth notes.
I mean, that rhythmic phrase, bum, ba-dum, bum, is composed of 6 16th notes worth of time in values of 3, 1, 2, dot, 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 and it's like 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 1, dot, 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 dot. So even though it sounds simple, bum, bottom, bum, bottom, it's kind of complex, you know? They're all different lengths, and it gives it this like hopping quality. It's not a straight walk.
Mm-hmm. And there's some debate about how fast to play it, which is really interesting too. I should say that Bach did actually mark the jig tempo. I think he did that later. I think some musicologists have taken that to mean that he doesn't want you to take it too slow. But some people play this so fast, including the recording we have here. I have played this a lot slower. It works really well slow too. It's one of those things where you can work at a variety of tempos. It's often compared to the French Suite number 2 in C minor, the jig from that at the end. The jig has the same type of canary rhythm. So canary, this is interesting. It kind of seemed like one of those old wives' tale facts that can't possibly be true. But if you look it up, this rhythm is sometimes called the Canary Jig rhythm, the Canary dance rhythm. It is actually a dance rhythm from the Canary Islands, which means that a dance tradition existed hundreds of years ago and before Bach's time in the Canary Islands that made its way to Europe and was a thing that they knew in Europe in the 16 or 1700s as a dance form or a dance type, a dance rhythm from Canary Islands, which seems by all accounts to be true, which is kind of amazing.
So do you have a specific moment in here, Christian, that you love?
It's tough for me to pick for this one. I love all those delightful, quick little rips all the way up those 5 notes that takes all 5 of your fingers to play. But I'd like to focus on what I think is the most surprising note, which is that F natural at bar 22. I think we're expecting an F sharp there, but it's a really nice and surprising alteration of that pitch down to the F natural, starting down at that A, going up to the F natural instead of the F sharp, giving us something that we call in music theory the Neapolitan 6 chord. The interval between that low note A and that upper note F natural being lower than the F sharp that would have been within this key and what would have been expected.
But then the D sharp after actually ending up outlining a leading tone diminished triad into E minor, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're on our way to E minor.
So you know what is a really cool thing here is what you mentioned, the F natural, and then what I mentioned, the D sharp. When I was talking about the D sharp, which is a leading tone into E minor, that's D sharp, F sharp, A, right? That's what that triad is, the diminished triad. The F sharp does appear later in the top voice, but what ends up happening in the low voice there is that, which is a cool double chromatic neighbor thing, which is a little bit unusual. That high note being the note that you said that you liked, Christian, the F sharp. And then you get the sort of chromatic neighbors on both sides, right?
Yeah, but they are both chord tones because...
Not of the same chord, though.
No, they're both chord tones of different chords.
Yeah, that's what's cool.
The E is what's the passing one, so it's kind of
Yeah.
reversed from a double neighbor situation. The F is part of an F major chord, which has the A on the bottom from before, and then the D sharp is the bottom of an inverted B major chord, which is the dominant of E. These things are all leading up to the E minor that comes afterwards, and they have to go in that order.
Right.
First, second, third.
And I would argue even that you never want to get too granular with the analysis of harmony in Bach, because I would argue that, of course, like you said, it lands on the E cadence, but that's 2 measures after your moment there. That's where it really lands on the E.
Yes.
In terms of the Goldberg structure that he always uses for all these movements, right?
That's true. I was talking about measure 23 and not 24.
But 23, I would argue, is an inversion. Because even though in the beginning it is E on the bottom, it's bum, bum, and then it hits the G. I think the G is actually the bass note. If you're following like the bass line.
Yeah. Really, the bass note that should be in that measure is B, in terms of the Goldberg bass.
True, but that is one he doesn't give us until the very end of the measure.
He's really flexible.
Yeah.
As long as it's there somewhere, he does it. But, I mean, you could play the Goldberg bass to this and it would work. I would like us to observe the ending of both the A section and the B section. When you get to the very last measure, there is a grace note written in. At least it is in the scores that we have, although it's not there in the original manuscript, but it is stylistically appropriate, so...
It is there in the end of the A section in the original manuscript, which is probably why it got added by editors later to the end of the B section.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard it not used in a recording, but now I guess we know that if it was not used, there'd be some justification for that. Anyway, the delightfully crunchy interval that results from this ornament, from the bottom note D to the upper note C sharp before it resolves, is really nice. And then at the end, when we finally reach the triumphant conclusion of this beautiful, simple dance, those notes end on a G at the end, from F sharp to G.
You want to know something crazy? In the original manuscript and in the first edition of the printed version of this from 1741, that C sharp that you're talking about, the grace note, is mislabeled as a C. Like it doesn't have a sharp sign.
I wonder if that's because the note before was C sharp.
Maybe it was just assumed that you would know that it would have to be. But it is not there, and Bach didn't write it. And I'm sure he obviously meant it to be a C sharp, by the way. I'm not saying it can be a C. It literally can't, according to the rules of the form. We have a secondary dominant happening into that note. That's how the Goldberg form goes. It's like, that is not a C natural. But it is an interesting quirk that it's missing.
Mm-hmm. It could just be a notational thing where everyone assumed that it wouldn't be the other way because it wouldn't sound correct.
Right.
So leading up into the ending is the most glorious high note. Even though it goes by so quickly and it's barely there, we are sort of building up to it. When we first hear it, it's this A on the top, coming into the first ending. When we hear it the second time, everything is higher, all of this music is higher, and so we get a higher note, a D, the second time, which wouldn't be too high on a piano, but on a harpsichord that's pretty high up there.
One of the things that Bach is constrained by is the form and like what he can do with the shape of the melody. If he's already created the first half of the Goldberg movement that he's working on, then the second half has to do certain things shape-wise, melodically, like what you just said. However, he does always have the option of which octave to take things in. Does he want to go up or down, you know? Does he want to jump in an interesting place, up or down? I've always found the Bach basso continuo lines in the cantatas to be like this too, where it's like he seems pretty locked into the form of each movement, but then the octave placement is really up to him and his own whim. It seems like it's, and those can be really, really unusual for the basso continuo parts. Like he can sometimes jump 2 octaves from low C to middle C.
Or he reverses a jump that was formerly an octave up will become an octave down.
Right.
That happens pretty commonly.
Yeah.
And look what happens at the end of the A section of this jig. The arpeggio of the D major scale starting on the bottom and going up.
Right.
But then at the end, starting at the top of the G major and going down, which grants it an extra little bow on the present of being finished, like being complete.
Right, because not only is it that thing going down to the low G, but it also is like a wider range between the left and right hand at the end.
Yeah.
With the G being, the G on the right hand being higher than the end of the A section, the D in the right hand being a little lower.
Yeah, if the end of the B section was the same as the end of the A section, just transposed up or down, Bach knew that that would not be satisfactory. There have to be other things about it that are also different.
And now, let's hear the moment for today, which is the ending of Movement 7 of the Goldberg Variations. If this introduction to a musical moment by Bach has piqued your interest about the Goldberg Variations, well, like we said 2 weeks ago, this is an amazing video, an amazing recording of the Goldberg Variations, which is produced by the Netherlands Bach Society, performed by Jean Rondeau. The link is in the description.
So what's up next?
Well, we've come up with a number of traditions over the past couple of years of A Moment of Bach. And now we're on season 4. The last 3 seasons we've been looking at a Brandenburg Concerto for each season. We started with Brandenburg Concerto 3 in season 1. Then we kept going in order. And that means we're on Brandenburg Concerto number 6 for this year. So next week we will take a look at movement 1 of Brandenburg Concerto number 6.
Until next time, enjoy those moments.